And start. Hello there, friends. It is Tim, Kirby Russia, hardcore Telegram chat, sort of an emergency session here. I wasn't really thinking of doing a live stream today, but I wasn't quite paying attention to the news earlier in the day. I've been writing basically, I've tried to sort of bulk organize a lot of interviews for the future. I kind of have time over the next few days to record a lot of interviews, so I thought, why not? Let's go nuts. And so I've been just writing tons of different interview questions and organizing all this stuff, which for me is very time consuming. I'm a terrible producer. And then all of a sudden, a couple hours ago, people told me that former president, or possibly not so former president, Donald Trump's home has been raided. This is not very related to Russia, but it made me angry and it made me wake up. So I'm not going to sleep anytime in the near future. So it's time for a live stream. Also, there was a question from the previous live stream that was very good, but didn't fit in. If you guys remember, if you watched it, I just uploaded it before this. So if you go to either Tim Kirby Russia on BitChute, Rumble, or YouTube, you could watch that live stream in the future, which was mostly about, it seemed like every question had to do with, what do you do, the day you actually get to Russia, about apartments and stuff like that. But there was a good question about what the future of Ukraine is going to look like. And I think we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about Donald Trump. Let me get to my saved messages here. I also found in the chat some interesting opinions about Donald Trump for you guys. Most of you don't like him. So I'm the minority here. But anyways, he's also got some very big information from the biolab thing. You have to remember, the biolab thing is probably the first place you even heard about that was here, because one of my buddies sort of leaked the info. So unfortunately, I haven't gotten a good leak in a while, but that one was a pretty big one. So anyways, feel free, everyone who's watching, and there's already a few people here, aren't there? So everyone who's watching, let me expand this. Okay, remember, if you guys want to raise your hand and talk, today's a real open discussion. You can ask questions. All your questions will appear in the chat, no matter what you post them under. And if you want to raise your hand and actually talk to me with your voice, go nuts. It's a good day for it. But so anyways, let's take a look at the first issue. I wanted to kind of actually get in and read a little bit about what the heck is going on with Donald Trump, and especially from a Russian perspective here. So anyways, it's share screen time. Oh, okay. And here we go. So anyways, this is pretty crazy. It says FBI agents raided Donald Trump's residence, Mar-a-Lago. I've heard people say this a few different ways. I want to call it Mar-a-Lago, Florida, on Monday, in a move the former U.S. president called political persecution. While the Justice Department has not officially commented on the operation, several major U.S. news outlets reported the raid may have been related to boxes of classified documents Trump took from the White House, citing persons familiar with the matter. Let's see. What did he say? These are, unfortunately, I cannot do a Donald Trump impression. I can't even do it anymore. Kind of do a George Bush Sr. sort of way of talking. But after George Bush Sr., I can't do an impression. So I wish I could. A good Trump impression, I really appreciate. But anyways, these are dark times for our nation, as my beautiful home, Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, is currently under siege, raided, and occupied by a large group of FBI agents. Trump said in the statement released around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday, adding that nothing like this has ever happened to a president of the United States before. And that actually, I don't think is hyperbole. I don't think that is blowing up something. I'm trying to think. Raided? Possibly without a warrant. No one has really said it in any of these articles whether there was a warrant or not, which makes me kind of lean that there was really no particular search warrant. Another thing that was actually brought up that was a very interesting point, this is not my observation, it's an observation from other people, is that Trump was actually in New York at the time, meaning his security detail, i.e. his Secret Service guys, as being a former president, were not there. So they also picked a good day, and they chose to do it at night, which is also classic. As someone who had their home raided as a teenager at night, I can appreciate that that's not probably the best time to do it from a respectable gentleman's standpoint, but that's how they go. Pretty freaking crazy. So anyways, what else do we have here? And remember, we're going to RT for the truth on this issue. According to Trump, the raid was unannounced, and the agents even broke into my safe. He called the opera. Oh, yeah. One thing you guys should know is if you ever watch, I've had the chance to watch some videos of how the FSB and those guys open doors. No matter how big your metal door is, no matter how big your safe is, They're getting in there, and they're getting in there quick. I'm just telling you. And I have a strong feeling the FBI probably has the same knowledge base and tools and all that stuff. So, yeah, no safe will work against the government. But anyways, he called the operation not necessary or appropriate, branding it weaponization of the justice system by Democrats who desperately don't want him to run for president 2024. But that's sure what it looks like, isn't it? This is a very surface level opinion. Of course, there's usually deeper levels. But on the surface, boy, this kind of looks like something that was used against him as a form of intimidation. Because despite the fact that I know most of you guys who comment about Trump tend to feel that he is completely fake, he is a charlatan, he wasted his 4 years, and so on and so forth. You know, I think you got to judge people by their actions, and his enemies have a very high opinion of him. I'll put it that way if they're doing stuff like this. Because, you know, back when supposedly, you know, Obama was going to make the change that evil people like George Bush Jr. Weren't able to do, none of this kind of stuff went down. That's for sure. Everyone got to go and give big smiles at like charity benefits or hang out at Nelson Mandela's funeral and all that shit. All right, but anyways, what is the difference between this and Watergate? Trump asked. That's a good quote. You know what's also I have to say is, even if you hate Trump, this is a very calm under fire. He's got some banger quotes here from this article already. And he's definitely, as you can see, he's turned off his usual like fourth grade level speaking. Because usually when Trump speaks to the public, I think he specifically is like, this man is bad. And I know that he is bad because I saw this. And I only use the most basic 2,000 words in English. That's usually the way he talks, but he's got some doozies here in these. But anyways, yeah, so what's the difference between this and Watergate, Trump asked. Good question. Referring to the 1972 break-in at the Democratic National Committee office in Washington, the scandal eventually forced President Richard Nixon to resign. Again, looking kind of similar. The New York Times, then again, there's probably someone out there who really is a Watergate expert who didn't like that. Well, there's a similar, let's say similar flavor. The flavor is similar, okay? The New York Times confirmed that the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago, but said Trump was not there at the time. And remember, this is something. Now, with someone especially like Trump and this whole thing of how we live in a surveillance state, they know when you're home and when you're not. They do. If you're thinking out there that if the FBI was going to do some sort of raid of his house and they didn't really think about where he's going to be, trust me, you know, Donald Trump is, or most of us are really not able to go completely off the radar. They knew he wasn't going to be there. Yeah. So, and also another person who was not me pointed out the fact that maybe if his Secret Service was there, things could have gotten very hot very quick. Bang, bang. So anyways, the search took place on Monday morning, the outlet claimed, citing anonymous sources. I don't know about Monday morning, because every picture I've seen has been in darkness, and that's sort of what Trump said. That's weird. The same sources suggested that it was focused on 15 boxes of materials, including many pages of classified documents that Trump took with him after leaving the White House in January of 2021. A White House official told CNN it was not notified about the search. Okay. So the White House supposedly doesn't know, but of course they told CNN, who's not going to question it, who's never going to question it. Oh, fantastic. All right. While the former president's statement did not mention any materials, he did bring up the fact that Hillary Clinton, as a former first lady of the United States, had taken antique furniture and other items. Wait, that sounds really bad. Do you get to, like, take the forks, knives, and spoons, too? Just took antique furniture. I don't know. Maybe that's a normal thing to do. I don't know. Guys, maybe you can answer the question. Does each president, I've heard, you know, I kind of remember something about the first ladies being able to redecorate. Maybe each president sort of does get their own furniture now that you mention it. Well, anyways, maybe you guys can let me know in the comments. Is the furniture at the White House like a temporary thing, or does it belong to the state? I don't know. That's one of the things about it always reminds me, like when people always say about the wealth of Putin, when they forget that in Russia, all the president's stuff, for the most part, stays for the next guy. There's sort of always been this policy, even during communism, that generally the stuff of the head of the nation, a lot of the things that he has are actually just sort of for everyone. You know, like Stalin's dacha. It's not like he was able to leave it to his kids in his will. It went down the line through the leadership. So I don't know. That's more of the thing with the furniture in Russia, that would not fly. That furniture would not be considered private property. I'll tell you that much. While the former president's statement did not mention any materials, he did bring up the fact that Hillary Clinton, as a former, we talked about that. He accused the U.S. establishment, all three branches of government that are currently led by the Democrats, of hating him and trying to stop him in the Republican Party with lawless political persecution and witch hunt. One of the authors of the NYT article was Maggie Haberman, who earlier in the day promoted her upcoming book about Trump by claiming he had shredded government documents and had them flushed down a toilet while president. Okay. Now, first I've heard of it. Doesn't mean it's true or not true. Haberman was the reporter mentioned as a friendly journalist by Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign staff, according to emails from the team manager, John Podesta. And do we have the person who wrote this article did a great job, and their name does not seem to be mentioned. Fantastic. RT, why are we doing this? No, but anyways, so that's kind of the overall. Now, see, look, why I was pretty sure this happened at night. See, look at all the photos. Well, I guess that could be the morning. But see, everything from like the mainstream media news sources, well, there's some people showed up for a protest. And see, everything's kind of happening at night. I don't know. I do appreciate the people who had the sort of the balls to go down there and actually, I guess, protest the FBI. You're playing with fire. I respect that. But anyways, the share screen is going to stop. We're going to come back to me. I kind of wish I could do like a picture-in-picture thing. Maybe there's a way to do that. But so anyways, guys, this is some crazy stuff. This is some crazy, out-of-this-world stuff. And again, this is one of those things where we're all so tired of hearing about like democracy and democratic values and freedom and all that. And look what they've done to Trump. It was unprecedented when they canceled him from pretty much all social media. And now they're just raiding his home to take whatever he wants. This is a whole new level here of ridiculousness, of BS. It's a kind of a sad day in American history. But anyways, I want to actually see if you guys have any comments or questions. And then I'm actually going to read some interesting comments about Trump that I found in the Tim Kirby Hardcore chat, because why not? my program. But anyways, was there anything else? There was a warrant. Okay, so Lee says, or Li says there was a warrant. Some judge, Bruce Reinhart, involved with Epstein, rubber stamped the warrant after 2 FBI agents requested. Thank you very much, Li. Good job for you, and for enlightening the chat here. So warrant was approved. A good court report on the tinderbox in the U.S. The tinderbox is in, this could be explosive. Yeah, like, I don't know, but I do think, I'm always kind of wondering at what point will America's Republicans, who are like oligarch rich, okay? I'm not trying to be cute and say America has an oligarchy and Russia's free. I'm not getting in that bullshit. Kind of, to an extent, pretty much every country has every society has an oligarchy. You know, there's always some sort of rich elite that has a lot of sway over the government and what's happening and so on and so forth. So as America, not being different than other societies in this way, having some sort of oligarchy, I'm always kind of considering there's supposedly, in the United States, supposedly there are right-wing, Republican, Christian, more so Protestant than anything, wealthy people. And it's kind of like, I'm kind of always wondering, what's the point where they've had enough? This could be one of those moments. This could be the moment where it went from, well, I guess they could censor anyone who goes against their agenda on the internet. And now it's like, well, they could just raid the home of anyone who goes against the agenda. I wonder if this is going to be that moment where some of the Republican sort of elite is going to be like, yeah, we're done with this. So this is, like it was mentioned, this is a possible tinderbox or a moment where things could flare up. I definitely think that there is some truth to that. And you guys should know, I do not like when people just doomsay, although I am a huge Alex Jones fan. I think he's been saying World War III started since like the early 90s. So sometimes people get a little bit over enthusiastic about doomsaying, and I'm not doing that here. But I really think that this is something where if you're in the mindset of an extremely wealthy person, not normies like you and me, but some really, well-off, established right-wing, like, billionaire, and you're looking at this, and you're seeing that Trump is sort of like you in the mirror as a right-wing rich billionaire, could force people to take action, because comfort is the ultimate means of oppression. Quote Tim Kirby. I'm the only one who says that. And that is a definite blow to people's sense of comfort. Okay. Oh my gosh, we have a hand raised. AZ Pat, or possibly as Pat. Allow to speak. I'm allowing you to speak. Where are you? Hello. As Pat, you wanted to talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. Hey, I wanted to speak to your question about what will it take for the oligarchy, Republicans, whatever, to do something, rise up, or say boo. I honestly don't think anybody with any capital or any stake in American society is going to stand up, because what we call here the MIC, the military-industrial complex, since the fall of the Soviet Union, the military-industrial complex here in the States, along with NATO, has just gone nuts. And that's where a lot of money is. That's where the money's being made stateside. So I honestly don't see anybody, cutting their own throat by saying, oh, no, we've got to rein in the military-industrial complex. I see the opposite of that. I see them saying, let's do more. And we see the evidence of that in Taiwan. We see it in the 800 bases that we have across the world.
Here, one thing, let me throw you out a theoretical. This isn't so much my opinion, but just a theoretical, okay? So we have, who are these people? That's your Blinken, that's your Pelosi, that's your Victoria Nuland, the sort of people around Biden, the real group of people who's in this ever eternal hunger to start a new conflict. They're actually not that big in number. So do you think that there could be a moment where something sort of sways against them, or do you think that there's actually just a lot of quiet players involved in this?
Well, I don't see an any organized movement like Trump is trying to organize a movement, and he's being hammered down. The only movement I see is generic, asymmetric, or guerrilla, if you want to put it another way. It has to be the masses of little people, unorganized. If you try to organize something, you'll be infiltrated and arrested. You'll be taken down, like Trump is being taken down. If this doesn't take Trump down, they'll do something else to take him down. Whatever it takes, they're going to do it. So if you try to organize, even if you've got the best of intentions, and I don't know any politician that could withstand the level of investigation that Trump has and still come up clean. I don't know any politician that could stand that. So anybody that stands up has to be so squeaky clean. It's just unbelievable. And tell me somebody who's that squeaky clean.
Well, yeah. Well, here, I'll tell you one thing. So let me mute you. There's some great comments. Let me try to respond to it. Also, as Pat, thank you. You've made a lot of really good comments in the chat. I've noticed that, especially today. But anyways, like with Trump and I share something. I think to the perspective of a certain group of people, we seem very dumb and naive, but I assure you, Trump and I are not. And I think that, Trump definitely has his cards in order, because you sort of really, to frame someone, you need that sort of kernel of truth, that little grain that someone did something really bad in order to get at them. But apparently, Trump's clean enough. His taxes are good enough. He may have thrown away those first two wives, but at least he had sex with adult women. So, they got nothing on him. One of the other things too is that I think Trump also made a good decision is that when he positioned himself as a candidate, he came out as being pro-religion, but not being a pillar of religion. Because we all remember Trump back in the 80s. it was wild times and wild chicks. Okay, so I think he did a good job of that. So if someone's like, well, you, Mr. Trump, cheated on your wife in 1987, and he'll just be like, yeah, I did. And what? So I don't think you can really get him on this stuff like how, I think really surprisingly, I saw it coming with Clinton as a teenager, but the rest of America sort of didn't. But anyways, there's that. And the one thing, too, about people standing up or whatever, I think I may have misspoke, because one of the things, Jeff, that we do have to understand is that in order for people to rise up, they have to be made to rise up by organizers. War is essentially really what it is sort of a battle of organizational skills, be they organizational on the industrial side, the actual soldiers, the tactics, and so on. I think one big problem that actually has been holding America back is the sort of like one guy with one gun fantasy. And I'm a big fan. You may have heard me say this in the live streams before, that I like romanticism. I'm actually a massive romantic, not romance like man, woman, but like the beauty of Napoleon's Grand Armée, that kind of romanticism. I am definitely that sort of romantic, and so I understand the need for it, especially when you're talking about ideology and politics of it and all that. But I think in America, we've really, when we're talking about people rising up, the heartland of America, the simple American guy, his sort of, I don't know, romantic vision of what that would look like is sort of one guy, one gun against society. It's like that movie Falling Down or something, or it's I'm going to be a prepper and I'm going to go up to Alaska and be in a cabin. I just watched Bush Radical bought some land. It's a Bush Radical's a channel on YouTube that's really good. He bought some land in Alaska, and it had like a prepper house on it, and he had to kind of go through all the stuff. Kind of interesting to see a prepper building that actually didn't survive to even meet the apocalypse. But anyways, I think that mystique we have of this almost one day, well, the average American is going to rise up and make change and do all this, but he's going to do it by himself. And it's just not the way. That's not the way things work. And in a lot of ways, that's the whole concept of why there has to be some sort of national leader, as the Russians call them. And in some ways, that's national leader has been the reason where certain Russian politicians have said, look, even if there's something about Putin you don't like, we just got to stick with him for now, because that's where we're going. It's kind of like he said it was kind of like Stalin during World War II. Even if you're a priest, got to stick with the Team Russia here. We'll deal with the communists later, or we'll work something out. You know what I mean? And I think that's something we should not forget about. But anyways, guys, about rising up, I may have sounded a bit too naive there, but I do think that one thing that when you are a really rich billionaire, and your mindset changes, you could start to maybe tweak certain behaviors and stuff like that. So anyways, thank you very much, Pat. Remember, we can answer all sorts of things in the chat. Oh my God, we have new spam. It's not from Dan Scavino. It's for John F. Kennedy Jr.'s program, something related to QAnon. Amazing. So we're going to get rid of that spam, and I'm going to actually look at your messages. So Irina's been writing, Trump has been through so much lately. It makes me respect him even more to think of staying in politics after all this. Yeah, this is also one of those things where, again, we sort of have these two sides of Trump, where I think a lot of us were disappointed by his presidency. But again, he sort of was like, guys, I'm jumping into the swamp. I'm trying to drain the swamp as mostly one man. But anyways, let's read some criticism of Trump that was from our chat. So many people have really raked him over the coals. This person's, I believe their username is called, what is called progress are preparations for a catastrophe. That's a username. Okay, so he says about Trump, his opinion, possibly hers. Trump is no different. He basically took half of the counselors and advisors of the Obama administration and integrated them. That is true. Now, this is one of those things where we sort of wonder, to what degree did Trump sort of have to compromise? Did he want to come in and try to play some sort of like soft game and try to make a deal with these kind of people. That it remains a mystery, but it's definitely it was a mistake. It was a mistake if it was avoidable. If it was at all avoidable, that was a massive mistake. But then again, remember, Trump is coming from the business world, so business world and government world are actually very different. He knew Epstein. He knew Ghislaine Maxwell. He supports Israel without being anti-Jewish, but his son-in-law Kushner, oh boy, the Jewish stuff again, guys. You guys in that, in fact, we're actually going to have an interview with someone who has a pretty decent amount of expertise related to certain Russian-related Jewish conspiracy theories. Ooh, it's going to be delightful. It might get me banned from YouTube. But like I said, I usually don't believe in that stuff, but a lot of you guys sure do. Anyways, so the thing is about knowing Epstein. The problem is when you start to look at America's huge population of 330 or whatever, million people, but if you start looking at like the top 0.01%, all of a sudden that group starts to get a lot smaller because you can see all these old photos where Trump's handshaking with Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, and he's shaking hands with every person that was his enemy at some point. But this is true for all like the ultra rich and really successful people in the elite. They sort of all meet up with each other at one time or another. So he knew Epstein. Okay, when you talk about that, did Trump go to Epstein Island? Did Trump order certain services from Epstein? No, zero evidence of that. So until you have some evidence that he was in collusion with him, just knowing someone doesn't mean anything. Trust me, I've met a lot of people. I've spoken to Medvedev personally once. That doesn't mean I'm part of his team. Finally, he sent a message to Syria, and although the rockets didn't do much damage, it was clear he was basically continuing the deep state agenda. Now, about sending the rockets to Syria, it's clear he was continuing the deep state agenda. I'm not so sure about that. Because that was one of the weirdest things that happened in history. If he did continue the deep state agenda, what did he do? He launched 72 rockets, and I believe, no, it was more. It was like 125 rockets, and 72, 74 or something got shot down. So the majority got shot down, and the others landed nowhere. That I always interpreted as some sort of show. Maybe it was a show for the deep state, or a show for someone, or something that makes it look like Trump is sort of playing ball. But whatever happened on that big missile launch, it accomplished nothing. And it was a weird, singular event. Much like how Trump has never gone back on, this is something that did have an effect, the assassination of General Soleimani. And trust me, as someone who knows a couple people in Iran and sees their WhatsApp status updates, they are still pissed about that. The Iranians are not happy. They're on WhatsApp and they're still angry. But anyways, that was another bizarre decision because if you think about it, did Trump lead some sort of weird campaign of assassinating America's enemies? We don't know. So I would say overall, I don't agree with this person's opinion because if you look at Trump's 4 years, but compared to the other four presidents, his 4 years compared to other recent presidents, it almost looked like Trump was trying to do the good old Oscar Schindler. I'm going to be in the position to do something bad, but I'm going to do it as slow and as badly as possible to grind the machine down. That's what it looks like more to me. I could be wrong. I'm not God. God is in heaven. But people need to hope that he's the one to save them because of everything is paralyzed in the face of it. Oh, okay. So basically, this person's opinion is that Trump actually sucks. He's actually part of the machine, but people need something to believe in. In the book 1984, there's this sort of a character called Emmanuel Goldstein, who's like a fake rebel against Big Brother, but it's actually a plot by Big Brother. And I think that this person thinks that Trump is that Emmanuel Goldstein, the sort of fake hope that the masses want. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Maybe you can write in the comments and let me know. Remember, you can also call in. You feel free to raise your hand. Today we're having sort of a open day. We're talking Trump. We're going to talk one issue about Ukraine that I promised to answer that I didn't. We're talking a bunch of stuff. So anyways, we have Pete is on the line. Pete, you are the genesis of the last live stream because like half the questions came from you. So anyways, Pete, nice to see you. Or hear from you. Hello.
Am I present? Can you hear me?
You're on. You're on air. Drop the truth
Excellent.
bombs and question bombs.
So as a lifelong liberal, I finally saw the light some years ago when I personally became the enemy because I'm a white male. I didn't vote for Trump in 2016, but I did vote for him in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we're in a situation where it's the Democratic Party and the rhinos, rhinos being, fake opposition or controlled opposition, and when the rhinos are in charge, the Democrats are controlled opposition. So they're two sides of the same coin.
Let me slow you down because I've written professionally about ideology for many years. And so I'd like to talk to you about what made this change, because you say it's sort of like the cis white male has become the enemy. I get that. But what made you then in the first place really subscribe to being liberal, and what did that look like? What was your value system in the past?
Well, I went to a Catholic school, although my family, any of us really never went to church outside of school functions or, Christmas on a rare occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Although I was taught, that abortion is wrong. It's killing babies. And I sincerely believed that. And then I got into high school and I found out that if you told women or girls that you wanted to have sex with that same thing, that they would not have sex with you, unfortunately. Yeah. So that kind of, made me start to lean over to the left. And
wait. So are you implying that you may have leaned left for simpish reasons?
You might say that.
Whoa, revelations.
Although I used to work at bookstores for a number of years, a number of different bookstores, and I have done a lot of reading as far as the history of the CIA in particular, the history of the FBI and black bag jobs and COINTELPRO and all these different topics. And it was usually the right working against the left and, leftist elements of society. So that also, kind of reinforced my leftism, so to speak.
I see. Oh, very interesting. And so what was that, describe to us then, what was like that moment when you shifted over to having different political beliefs? Like, was it some particular event or like a series of stuff where you waked up and you're like, oh man, this doesn't work. This picture of the universe is wrong?
I would say that it was a series of events. I did have an health issue come about in 2015, and I started to reevaluate myself and my life and my values. And I remember, being at work and, I love jazz music, mostly from the 1960s by black musicians. Mm-hmm. And, when I was a baby, I think one of the first people who wiped my crack for me was probably a black woman, because my mom told me that she didn't actually want to have kids. It's a great thing to tell your children. She had 5. When I asked her why she did, she said that's what everybody else was doing. So it's kind of a broken family atmosphere.
The power of peer pressure. Don't underestimate it, especially when it comes to the fair sex. But anyways, continue.
I hear you. I remember I used to work for the largest telecom company in the United States, the largest mobile internet service provider.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm actually working the afternoons and I had to put in my login because I had trouble with my VPN.
So anyways, okay.
I was working for a new team at the office, and I had this senior technician on this new team that I was working for who was a black guy, and personally I liked him. He was a funny guy. I asked him when we went to the first team meeting that I was at on this new team why he always wore Raiders hats in the office, knowing that in the 1970s the Raiders were, if you were in a gang, if you were on drugs, if you were shooting steroids, those people were all in the Raiders.
Yeah.
And he said, when I was a young man, I had personal problems too. And he then proceeded to tell the whole team, he told the whole team that he once punched a Fort Worth police officer in the face.
Yeah.
But he did not go to jail. Instead, he was sentenced to therapy because this person that I liked, who happened to be black, he had 10 kids, and sending him to jail would have not been so cost efficient for those 10 mouths to feed, plus his wife.
No.
So I remember after having dealt with this guy, and I wasn't his personal secretary, but the work that I was doing unfortunately amounted to that because he was not held to any standard at all in the office, although he was a senior technician. I remember going home and reading this article that was printed in a university in Texas. I was living in Dallas at the time. And the headline was something along the lines of "White DNA is an abomination." And it was at that point that I realized that these people are not my friends. They're not my allies. And I'm not racist, but these people are.
Everything with them is about race. Everything.
Exactly.
So I can tell you one thing. So let me let you go, Peep. I'm going to tell one quick, then a little story here. And I see someone else has their hand raised, so we'll get to you very soon. But I can tell you one thing is that when I think in my mind, my dad was like Mr. Hyper Super Alpha male guy. But if I think about the men who've really influenced my life, it would be coaches Godbold, Clark, and Thompson. When I was in sixth grade, I didn't play for American football for my school. I played for like the Cleveland like athletic league. I don't know. It's like each like police district had there. I didn't understand it, but somehow I got into it, and I was the only white guy on the team, the white kid, And so everyone knew my name, which was nice. But the coaches were the coolest freaking guys ever, and I just can remember that there was something, because I'll put it this way. Of like the white kids I knew, only like my dad was the cool dad. He was the only like white guy who was like a stone cold Steve Austin, like pound a beer. Let's go shoot some guns, baby. It's time to ride that 4x4 pickup truck. Like he was the only like that. Everyone else was this very, I don't know. I just want to work. I'm very stuffy and I'm afraid to do anything, and I'm very, very near. So I can see that of masculine influences in my life, it was definitely like those three guys who sort of, besides my own father, it was just like a breath of fresh air compared to like these pansy male teachers that you'd have, or the complete wusses that were like the dads of all the guys I knew and stuff. And I can tell you one thing that I'll have to say carefully, but I do remember one moment when Coach Clark was sort of the head coach, right? And he always dressed perfect. He dressed like a businessman in maybe the 1950s or 60s. So he'd usually have because his skin he was a darker black, well, medium dark. So he would always wear lighter colors, like a light gray suit, and then maybe like a tan classic like Burberry trench coat. I don't know if it was a real Burberry trench coat. Who cares? It looked really expensive over that, right? And this was during the 90s, and when a certain word beginning with the letter N became really popular in black parlance. And I remember we'd be playing and he'd be throwing stuff at some of the other kids, and he would say, "I walked with Dr. King. I was at the right hand of Dr. King on those marches. They sent the dogs after me. They sent the water cannons after me, or the hoses or whatever. And I will be damned if I have anyone call me that N-word." So, I remember he would go on these really long tirades about being at the right hand of Dr. Martin Luther King. To this day, I've seen pictures of we've all seen pictures of Martin Luther King. I've never seen Coach Clark as his right hand. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's probably only the one fond memory that people have of the N-word. Okay, so... Oh, good times. He was a great coach. And also the other weird thing about him is, wait, V, don't go. No, V, come back. I'll let you come on, V. Hold on. I'll let you speak. Is that we had these really expensive uniforms, but they always collected the butt pad. V, come back. Are you here? I'm sorry, V. I took too much time. V wanted to talk. Where are you? Are you going to talk, V, or are we going to questions? Oh, well, V, you can jump in. Oh my gosh, you're on.
Sorry.
Okay. No problem.
I wasn't spitting a dummy, as they say in the UK. I hit the button on accident.
Oh, it's fine.
Right. So I have the same like left to right trajectory, which is what prompted me to share if you seemed interested in that. Mine was gonna be really succinct. I was raised by like definitely conservative leaning socially like parents, but I went to public school and I was a straight A student, and it was in a liberal state, so did that whole thing. And I think my parents were much more concerned about my straight A's than the information I was internalizing. Which, like, I didn't really make that association until later on. And that all went on all the way through until 2020. And then a lot of the prominent feminists that I was following on Twitter had gotten banned, and they were all on this app called Parler. And so I joined just to follow them. And I kept blocking all of these like MAGA accounts, and I was like, oh my God, this is so annoying sifting through all this. But I kept seeing things that like just sounded crazy, and then I would cross-reference them. So I have a degree in political science and theology. So I like my research skills are adequate, you know? So I would cross-reference them, and I kept finding that actually a lot of these things that I had never heard anywhere else in my Twitter bubble, like I would say a solid 90% were coming back as actually being true. And I was like, why am I not hearing any of these things? Why have I never been exposed to this? And for me, the real penny hitting, like dropping moment was CNN. So Trump signed the Abraham Accords, and CNN reported it. The headline was Trump holds event, little social distancing. And for me, when we're talking about like value systems, I had always felt like, what are the things that like the left stands for? Is like, we don't want foreign wars, we want peace in the Middle East, like all of these things. And so like, I felt my value system was the same, but all of a sudden these people were not representing. And that was the last time I went to CNN for actual news. And then that kind of started a big, so I started reading like Douglas Murray, did the Jordan Peterson stuff, you know, like Ben Shapiro, and then like eventually kind of came full circle with realizing I just read this amazing book called The Anti-Mary Exposed. What is it? Something like rescuing culture from toxic femininity. Anyway, and kind of coming full circle and realizing that actually a lot of the feminism and things I had been force-fed. So I'm a mom of 4, baby number 5 is on the way. And so just realizing a lot of the things I had been force-fed, including the guilt I had for being a stay-at-home mom, wasn't actually based in anything good or helpful.
Remember, you're talking to someone who's got a big beard here. Guilt for being a stay-at-home mom, that is not a criminal offense. So why did you feel guilty over that?
Well, because okay, so my mom was an immigrant to America and was so excited, you know, I was the first to go to university and was very horrified, you know, that I wasn't, hold on one second, that I wasn't, quote, using my degree. And I kept saying, but I am using it every day. Like I homeschool my kids and I'm raising them with this value system and, you know, exposing them to this broad world. We lived in like 7 countries in 8 years, you know, like, I felt that I was utilizing the skills I had learned, but she and many other women, both friends and family, felt that I, you know, had kind of let down the team by not joining the corporate world and quote unquote using my degree. I remember one lady, I was living in Spain, who considered herself one of those awful like thought leader people, you know. She said to me, so when are you going to be done with this and start using your brain? And I was like, excuse me.
Oh, get the fudge out of here. Whoa.
I use it all the time. But anyway, the thing I really wanted to ask you is, so like I said, we've traveled so much, you know, and we left the UK during the second lockdown, went to Mexico, and then hold on, can you get that? And then finally we're like, okay, we're going to go back to the States. And now that because I felt like I would feel safe and secure here. And then now that we're here after, you know, kind of the recent, everything's ratcheting up, I just feel like, is there anywhere in the world, like, my question is like, how do you feel there? And like, is there anywhere in the world that like people feel safe from their government?
Oh, safe from their government. Interesting. Well, you know what? Here's a big issue. Is that question is actually a little bit of a tough one. I'm going to mute you, not forcing you to not talk to me further, but just mute you so we don't get any crazy sort of background noises because Tim is easily distracted. Okay, do you feel comfortable? Well, the thing is, I bet a lot of those people who are these sort of feminists who are talking to, deep down, maybe not on the surface. On the surface, they're going to be like, oh my God, everything's so scary. There's men, there's the patriarchy. But deep down, they're like, yes, repressive government feels good. It's that government safety. So I wouldn't be surprised if they feel actually particularly safe in a very hyper-repressive environment. So I don't know about safe. I can tell you one thing about Russia is the difference between Russia and a lot of places is that the government here doesn't care. I remember when I was a Peace Corps volunteer, I believe the what was it called? Like the country head or like the national administrator, basically the boss of the entire country of Kazakhstan for the American volunteers. She basically said something like, look, I understand you guys are young. I understand sometimes you want to go out drinking. Don't make me catch you. Okay. And I think that attitude is kind of the way Russia tends to be. It's just like, oh, come on, don't do something so stupid that we have to arrest you. They're not, you don't really, if you encounter like a bad Russian police maybe want money from you. There's no like this weird Napoleon complex stuff. There's no like, oh, your grass is over 6 inches tall, you're getting fined. Like that just doesn't exist here. And so in a lot of ways, I personally feel a lot of freedom in Russia because I like this attitude that the government isn't looking to get you and they don't care. According to banks, if you take out, this is again, according to the banks, maybe they're lying, like 600,000 rubles or less a day, which is, you do that twice, you can buy a car. They won't even check what you're doing with it or why. They don't care. They don't give a shit. So you could make a pretty large amount of money before they even really notice. So I think that there's actually a very, and V, don't go too far away. We'll get you back on. I think that there's actually a great deal of freedom here. But V, if I can get you back on, let me ask, could you define what freedom looks like to you? Like what would be a really comfortable free lifestyle? Is it like walking down the street at night as a woman? Is it some kind of like financial freedom? Is it?
I mean, yeah, I can describe it really easily. So
sure.
We had, I mean, the whole COVID thing was I had a lot of trauma. So I birthed the baby in that. I had to fight with the government about my rights to have a home birth because I was in the UK at the time. They canceled home births. There weren't any private midwives. I was in Scotland and they're illegal there. So that's one example. It's like, just leave me alone. I did eventually obviously have my home birth because I said like, that's adorable that you're, you can cancel your support, but you can't tell me where I will birth. So I had my baby at home because.
So the threat, so hold on. This is important. So the threat is if you give birth outside of a government hospital, then you cannot get public like support for your child. That's the threat, or will they take the child away?
No. The threat was just like the midwives aren't gonna come, and you don't have the option to go private. And I was like, that's fine. Like that, your terms are acceptable. So like that's what we did. But the idea is to scare women who like that was my fourth child. I had already had 3 successful home births. So if it was your first baby, you'd be like, okay, yes, ma'am, I'll come to the hospital, do whatever you want. Yeah. So that's like level 1 trauma. Is like just don't come, but like. Don't micromanage my health. I would love options. I loved a lot of having access to the NHS. I don't think the American system is best, but also like in England, there were private midwives. It's just they happened to remove their insurance in Scotland, and then they put all the travel restrictions on, so we couldn't get there. So that's like facet 1. Facet 2 is like, let's do some common sense stuff. I got surrounded by armed guards with the baby strapped to my chest in an airport in Italy because I had a mask exemption, which I had valid for 2 reasons. I have a child who depends on lip reading, which obviously in a high pressure situation like an airport, he needed to have access to his mother. And the second is I have asthma. So I had the UK, like the British mask exemption, and I flew in and I had the holiday and that everything was fine. As we were leaving, they decided it was not fine. And so they took my passport, they took my Greek passport, and I was like, wait till I whip out the other one. I was like, all right, let's do this then. Because I have dual citizenship. I have the American and the European one. I was telling my husband, like, get the American one out. And they weren't going to let me on the plane. Because I said, I'll wear one, like, whatever, like, just let me leave your country. And
but too late. You've already done something. They don't like you.
Yes. Yeah, so exactly. They said, No, because you didn't have one on, then you can't go on. So this went all the way up to the pilot. It was a few minutes before the flight was going to take off. And he was British, thank God. And he was like, the entire back 2 rows are empty. Of course you can come on. And so at this point, I'm wearing a mask and I go to check in. And she's like, la greca, which means the Greek in Italian. And she goes, ma'am, I thought you had a medical exemption. And I said, ma'am, I thought I did too. And just like got on the plane. So then number 2 is like, let's use our brains. Okay. And like when the lady that's traveling with the baby and the 4 kids, you know, is like, thought she had the right thing and didn't, then like, let's make a reasonable solution. And then for me, for being here is more like, I don't love the hostility. So I'm Orthodox. I love the idea of being in an Orthodox culture again. But also it's like, it feels very hostile here. You definitely get the impression, like,
well,
I don't watch
let me say, okay,
media.
so we'll hear about some things. You've mentioned like some COVID restrictions. Well, those are gone here. They've been gone for a long time. Like I've said before on this program, there was like 3 months of an actual lockdown when stuff was serious. And, you know, we beat the curve or whatever, and they went forward. And then when the special operation kicked in, basically Russia just said, well, we're done with this farce. And it's over. And I just posted a couple days ago on the news, I heard that they officially declared that monkeypox does not pose any threat to Russian society. Done. So that stuff's over. I can tell you that much about that. About midwifing.
There like a province that was putting it back in?
Hold on. About midwifing and all that stuff, no one cares. Travel restrictions were really not too crazy, even maybe during the height of the lockdown they were. So maybe during that 3-month period, it would have been tough, but overall, people really, it's swim at your own risk in Russia. So I think that and if you really want to live in an Eastern Orthodox country, well, this is the king. So, I actually think that based on the way you've described freedom, this is probably a good fit for you. Although one thing is, remember, Russia's not very good for comfort, and it's stereotype time. Most of the ladies like their comfort. And in America and in England and all that, everything is going to be very clean and very pretty and all this stuff and IKEA decorations. And Russia's very rough around the edges. So
yeah, I mean, I think everything is a compromise. We lived in Mexico as well. We did Mexico, Croatia, Cyprus, Greece, Spain. For that. That is less important to me than the sense of community. And like I'm saying, the sense of hostility, because like I don't watch the mainstream media, but enough of it filters through in conversations and stuff where it's like these people hate like my family and our values, you know, and that feeling all the time.
You know what? Here, let me just, I'm going to let you go here but I'm just going to tell you that guess what? That doesn't exist here. And that's maybe one of the most refreshing things is you wake up here and you don't have any of that. And you live if you live in Russia, you live in a country where, you know, like those like hate crimes and all that, they apply to everyone, including the majority population. And all this stuff works. And it's very, very nice. And you can be as Christian as you want. And you can be as proud of yourself as you want. And things are pretty darn good. But one thing you will see on the Russian internet are the people in the black pill community, the Russian Russian-speaking black pill community for Russians who are going to say stuff like, well, you know, 3 months ago, some guy from the Caucasus Mountains was drunk and he stabbed someone on a bus. Yeah, what's the overall, like, murder rate and trajectory of crime in Russia? So, you know, obviously there's a couple exceptions to the rule, but judging by what you want out of life, this place is way better. AZ Pat wants to jump in about something, but you've already called in, so I'll let you call in. AZ Pat, you are on, but my friend, what is it? We don't want to have too many multiple callers here, you know.
Yeah, hey brother. I just wanted to get your prognostication or your input on the BRICS and the Mir's payment system and where you see that going. Like an Eastern monetary system, multipolar trade, and you know who's going to win that battle, and you know where you see the future going for Russia and for the EU.
Oh, okay. Well, here, let me then get to that right now. So, yeah, it's kind of jumping around here a little bit, which is okay. But I just want to get back to V. So, V, in the future, I'm trying to put together, I'll try to actually film it tomorrow, but we'll see. It is so insanely hot and disgusting around Moscow that I don't know. It's really hard to produce videos, but we'll see. I'm trying to make like a generic video that explains to people sort of the basic concepts of immigrating to Russia, because I've had to repeat myself so many times. I'm losing my mind. So I'll try to maybe send that over to you or something, or get that done in the future. But one thing, being married already to a non-Russian citizen, that's one real problem we're having, is getting people into Russia while they're already married. It's very, very difficult. It's possible, but very difficult. But anyways, so what AZ Pat was asking about was stuff related to the Mir, the Mir payment system, the alternative to the SWIFT that the Russians created. Even from day one, I know it works in China. So, for example, in terms of like business cooperation between Russia and China, I mean, you can just, just like in the past when you could use a Russian bank card, when I used to go to Cyprus, you could go bink and you could buy something. Apparently, the Mir system works that way too. I think one thing, you might not be talking to exactly the right person about macroeconomics and what's going to be happening here, but Russia's definitely put its, all of its eggs in the Mir basket. And we're going to see where that goes. But it seems like with the new interest about when BRICS from Argentina, Iran, even Mexico, which is pretty crazy. That is crazy. If Mexico is going to start joining pro-Russian like blocks and organizations, that's nuts. I'll tell you what could be interesting. Mexico joins the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That could have interesting consequences. But so do I think that the Mir thing is going to be big? Well, it's going to kind of have to be, because Russia has been, in terms of buying Russian resources, so all unfriendly nations have to pay in rubles. How does that work? Well, they essentially, it's like I just mentioned, you in the old days, you could take a Russian card, you go to Cyprus, and you buy something with a Russian card. So what happens is the signal goes to your Russian bank actually sends rubles to the Greek side. The Greek side converts them to euros and makes the payment, and they take their little percent. Then you make the payment and you get your purchase. And that's essentially what is happening for all the unfriendly nations to buy stuff from Russia. But we forget that the friendly nations can still use dollars or euros or whatever currency they want because they're friendly. But I think that eventually Russia's going to try to put the lean on them and be like, guys, use your own currency or use your national currency. And I think that will, when you're getting billions of dollars worth, being thrown around this and that way, I think it's going to really stimulate people getting used to something, because the Mir payment system isn't hard. It's the same thing as SWIFT. Like anyone who's my age, okay, so I'm 40 years old. So you're 40 years old or younger. I don't remember what credit cards were like in like the 60s. There used to be that thing where you'd have to go like ka-chunk on the credit card. I don't know how that worked. Something by magic. But in the more digital age with credit cards, I mean, you don't even have to think about it, just sort of does it. And I think that's really just a matter of going to the Iranians, who knows, maybe they already have, and being like, look, guys, we know you've been cut off from SWIFT, but we've got this amazing payment system that's already set up. So give me all your debit or credit cards or whatever the hell they use in Iran, and just put the little Mir sign on it, and bada bing, bada boom. And I think that's just going to be really a matter of the Russians going around to a bunch of countries, like I said, especially Iran, but maybe even Saudi Arabia. Maybe I could see Indonesia, Malaysia, maybe Thailand. I don't know about Turkey. Turkey is probably more likely to develop their own sort of something. But who knows? Turkey's crazy. You never know with them. But anyways, the Russians are probably going to go around to a lot of those countries and try to make everything compatible. China has its own system called Union Pay. And that's the thing, is that I believe Union Pay and Mir are like completely 100% compatible. And that's how you can do the whole China to Russia, Russia to China payments and all that. So as time goes on, that's probably where what the direction is going to go. And like I just mentioned, that maybe also, who knows, maybe it's going to be in Russia's interest to sort of, make this sort of open source. And so the Iranians will have their Iranian one, and the Chinese have Union Pay, and then, they'll link up. But I do think that is definitely going to be something that's going to happen. It's just a matter of Russia sort of marketing it and promoting it. So, yeah. So I think actually the future is kind of bright in that sense. And like I just shared that article a few days ago, where this is probably the most conspiratorial thing I actually believe in. But I don't believe that during this time of war, that the Russian, not the government, the weird central bank, which is kind of responsible to the government, but kind of isn't. Their main thing was like, yeah, we're going to get rid of coins. Got to get rid of the 5 and 10 ruble coins, which replaced the 5 and 10 ruble bills, which haven't been around for a long time. And they're going to bring them back. And so I think the value of money in Russia might actually be changing pretty soon, possibly by benefit. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that. Very weird move to, during this time of war, come out with replacing obsolete bills of micro denominations, because 10 rubles is what now? 20 cents? 15, 20 cents? Especially 5 rubles is like a dime. Why would you print a 10-cent bill? What is the point? But they're going to do it, maybe because the money's changing. I was even just heard today, someone threw around the idea that, I'm pretty sure, although don't quote me on this, but I kind of remember when I first went to Kiev, I think in 2011, it was like 6 rubles to the hryvnia. And pretty soon, I believe within the next couple of weeks, the ruble is going to be more valuable than the hryvnia is. They did it. They managed to sort of deflate the value of their money by like 7-fold. Zelensky, let's give a clap for Zelensky and Poroshenko, because this also happened during Poroshenko. You guys did it, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, and it was like a 4-fold decrease or something, but it's crazy how much their money is lost, and they think that that's going to expedite every Ukrainian territory because their money is becoming worthless quickly. The local money, the jump to the more stable rubles is very motivated. So, anyways, let's see where I kind of trying to get back on track here. Let's see, what else are we talking about here? Oh, we were reading criticism of Trump. James Smith, that was a manly name. Trump was essentially no different from any other mass murdering U.S. president. Same bloodthirsty domestic and foreign policies. I don't know. What was Trump doing that was extremely bloodthirsty at home? Well, one thing that he did do is, again, this thing that we're all disappointed in, is he kind of trusted the mainstream people. The one thing that he did kind of screw up was the whole COVID thing. He didn't stand up. He didn't really stand up for people's rights. He kind of just sort of was like, well, Dr. Fauci this, Dr. Fauci that. I don't know what to do. Kind of, I would say wishy-washy. But I don't know about a bloodthirsty domestic policy. Does anyone have any idea what he means by that? How was Trump bloodthirsty towards the American masses, especially when we were just talking to V about and Pete to an extent about the dangerous rhetoric in the West, the absolutely hateful, fascistic, inverted fascistic rhetoric of the West. That's not what Trump was saying. Trump was saying, hey, let's all get together and believe in constitutional principles together. So I don't know. I'm not seeing a bloodthirsty domestic policy. Also, Trump certainly had plenty of opportunities to go into bloodthirsty mode in other countries. We basically, the thing that really maybe helped Russia the most with this conflict in Ukraine is Trump gave Russia 4 years to get prepared for the impending doom. Because I think it was really Trump that kept that conflict sort of kept down, because he didn't start anything. He started nothing new. And everything that was going on during Trump's time that was from previous administrations, he just sort of kept a lid on it. So I really disagree with that. Contra veritim mundi. You're delusional, and Trump is a Zionist shill. Trump does like Israel. I'll tell you that much. He loves his Israel. But as a Republican candidate, you have to love Israel. So let's see. Abibas, our buddy. It is standard horse trading. Nothing out of the ordinary. Obama wasted deals, including a nuclear deal done with Iran. That was part of the cost of doing business with Iran, i.e. return our stolen assets. If you want to deal, then we could talk. Trump, under the influence of Bolton, took the opposite approach and wrecked deals and relations. Trump did tear up a lot of deals, but that's because I think he wanted to make a lot of new ones. Now Biden wants to kiss and make up again due to the self-inflicted energy sanctions boomerang against Russia of his administrator's idiotic policies. For similar reasons, they are now kissing up to Venezuela, where the Trump administration attacked with mercenaries not long ago. Yeah, but you also have to remember the weird thing remember with Trump, the drums of war were beating for a Venezuela invasion. Venezuela has no military capability. Unfortunately, Venezuela has barely any industrial capacity, which is a true tragedy of a country that has as much resources as they do. That's how Venezuela is different from Russia. It would have been a cakewalk, as certain U.S. officials have called it. They could have just bombed Venezuela. Trump could have just lit it the F up and took all the oil, and yet he didn't. But he certainly had plenty of opportunity to, and was certainly motivated by the media to do so, and he didn't. So who knows how many Colombian mercenaries went over the border, but Trump's attitude towards that was very humane, given the swamp. The Iranians are obviously less than impressed with the flip-flopping clown show, and why would they be? Yeah, if I was an Iranian official, it doesn't matter what the U.S. says; it's a lie. And even if it's the truth, with the Iranians after 40 plus years of this stuff, no. That would be my answer from the Iranian. Just you get the message from like the U.S. Well, they don't have an embassy in Iran anymore. Well, you get some sort of message from the State Department. No. Phone call from Biden. No. Just no. And just let it be, because you're not going to get anywhere. They're always trying to just screw with those Iranians, and I don't know why. Remember, guys, if you want to, I'm going to get going here pretty quickly, but remember, if you want to talk to me, if you've got something to say, we've had AZ Pat, we've had Pete, and we've had Vion, who had a lot to say about kind of their lives and motivations here. So if you guys want to talk something personal, let me know, okay? Or non-personal, who knows? Raise your hand, and I'll let you on the program. Lee is asking, thoughts on Steven Seagal? Any insight as to connection to Russia? Thanks, Kirby. We'll be turning in the Russian Super Bowl. Yes, as soon as I get my link to the Russian Super Bowl, which will be October 9th, I will send it here so you guys can watch, or you can just watch it later. With Steven Seagal, the problem is in Russian he's called Steven Seagal, almost like pronounced like seagull, like the bird, but in English he's Seagal, and I always screw that up, so please forgive me with that. Well, he's I think he's a lot like other people here who are watching this program, is he's a Western person that in theory likes the West, but he's so just fed up with it. I think that's another thing where Steven Seagal just couldn't take it. And, he has citizenship here, and he's sort of one of Putin's buddies because he's Mr. Martial Arts and all that. So I think that this may be something where, who knows, maybe some people, I wouldn't be surprised, let me put it this way. I wouldn't be surprised if some rich organization or person in Russia was like, Steven, you are the best. We love movie. You go Donbass, you show everything. You show truth. I help you. I give you producer. Here's $1 million. You go. You do it. So one thing, guys, unfortunately, your buddy here, Tim, has been offered to go to the Donbass to film stuff many times. But the problem is they don't realize that my film crew is not on my money. I don't have a film crew. I also sort of I don't like to do stuff for no point. And so I've declined thus far. I don't really see any reason to go. There are people who can do an amazing job, like Bad Wolf or Graham Phillips. They know what they're doing. That's not my genre. See, Trump has been through so much lately. It really makes me respect him even more. I think I read that already. V, how are the jab regulations now? I read one province in Russia is mandating QR codes again. Maybe St. Petersburg, but I don't know. Dude, the federal government removed all that months ago on the federal level. I don't know. Could you provide me evidence of this? What place is this? Because they don't even ask anymore. I've flew to where have I flown to? Last winter, I flew to the Nenetsky Автономный Okrug, which is the Nenets semi-autonomous region up in the far north. So this was before New Year's, I guess. I think it was December. And basically you had to do your PCR, whatever the hell that test is. But I had one that was a year old. I forgot to do it. They didn't care. They didn't even look at it. So there was that. And then since then, every time I've flown, no masks, no questions about any of this stuff. So I don't know what you're talking about. I can say I was in St. Petersburg to play American football, and the waiters still wore masks. As did apparently all flights to St. Petersburg were masked. The train employees on the train had to wear masks. The passengers didn't. Genius. So something's rotten in St. Petersburg. I can tell you that much. But I really wouldn't advise anyone from the West to live in St. Petersburg, not because of that reason, but because of the fact that the weather is hot garbage. It's a lot like Moscow, but just with 1 billion extra minuses. So if you're going to live in a giant city as a foreign person, you might as well just live in Moscow. I mean, I don't know. So anyways, the story goes that Ivanka saw a White Helmet's tearjerker docu on Netflix, Shimona Trump, and he launched the missiles. I don't know about that. I was indoctrinated by public school system. Okay. Someone's saying, haven't white people suffered enough? I think we have some sarcasm there. Well, if you think about it, if you consider Russians to be white people, which certain universities in the western part of America on the West Coast, certain universities do not. So it depends who you ask. But if you consider Russians or in general Eastern Europeans to be white people, then there's no white man's privilege here, and there certainly hasn't been. Pete, I protested the 1996 Democratic Convention in Chicago with Russell Means and other Native American activists. To follow up on your story, I wanted to talk briefly about Trump and then follow up what you said. Okay, Pete, you can come back on. We can talk about that. Sure, Pete, come back. Freedom is where there isn't an assault on the family unit. Well, the thing is, Lee, then you're getting into some tough territory because there are three political systems that, well, we call them the three political systems of the 20th century, but obviously liberalism comes from the Enlightenment. But the real battle between them was between liberalism, communism, and fascism in the 20th century, all three of which are inherently anti-family. So the 20th century and all of its political ideas are anti-family. So if we really want to get like into a philosophical context, everywhere's anti-family. I would just say that Russia is much now way, way lower on that scale than a lot of places are. Okay, so if we want to talk about that one day, we can really take a deep dive into that. Hostility is real. I can feel it. Hold on one second. Let me read another one. Tim, how would you change the immigration law in Russia to make it easier for good people to come and stay and keep questionable ones away? Okay. Oh, boy. Irina, that's the next topic for the next live stream. I need time to actually think about that. I did write a documentation to the State Duma, my recommendations, but I didn't write them a recommendation in a like utopian sense. I sort of wrote more like a list of issues, problems, and then like sort of list of potential solutions. And before that, like a basically philosophical prologue that essentially what you're doing is it's almost like building a soccer team. Like I mentioned, like, you know, my kid plays soccer, and that essentially you're trying to get the best people. But one of the things about being a kid is he plays for Lokomotiv, which is actually a pro team, but he's on the kids team, is that, you know, they have 4 kids teams. They could have 8. They could have 6. They could go to having 1. It's sort of up to them. So it's a little bit different than a pro team where you can only have 23 soccer players. But when you have like the kids leagues, you're trying to draft the best kids from all over the country, try to give them this nice infrastructure to become great players and do good for the future of your organization or future of your nation. So I tried to use that example. Hopefully they understood it, but maybe they didn't care. I don't know. But I like to have a little philosophical basis. Hello again, Pete. You wanted to ask something. Okay, I got to make you louder. Everyone is so quiet. Yes. Okay, hello.
Yeah, not to dominate the stream. So, you know, I my 2 cents about Trump, but after everything they've gone through already, they're kind of planning something this time, as far as I'm concerned. They can't let it go. They won't.
Oh, they're going to plan something? Oh, of course. Those boxes are going to be filled with so much incriminating fake evidence. Oh, I have a strong feeling that they're gonna, yeah, it's gonna be Epstein stuff. It's gonna be just tons of fake news. So yeah.
I did want to follow up on what you said about the voucher last time. So, having traveled to Russia 3 times in the past, I always wanted to do everything, you know, totally by the book because I'm not looking for any trouble. But even on my first trip, it was obvious that the voucher it's just a blow off. It's not something that any of them take seriously.
They do. Even if the police stopped you, they would ask for your passport and your registration, and maybe that little what is that called? Like transportation card, the little like card piece of paper that shows you went over the border on the flight. They would ask to see those things. That voucher thing, no one cares about it at all. So yeah,
it's weird. It's like supposedly they want to know where you're staying, but they don't care where you're staying. And even that site, ILS-USA, that I referred people to, they will provide the voucher to you, and you have no intention of staying at this place, and they know it, and you know it, and it's just a blow-off.
And no one cares. Yeah. It's just sort of that, it's one of those things where they're like, the government thinks you need to check this box. That's a legacy of communism. that's one of those. There's not that many. To be honest, the country's changing a lot, but that is a weird legacy of communism that foreign people to entering the Soviet Union have to prove that they're going to be staying somewhere. Because remember, under communism, it was very important for them, in their opinion, to control where people were at any given time. And so even Russians themselves, well, to this day they have them, but they don't matter, internal and external passports. So your internal passport was actually needed to travel around your own frickin' country. And so that was a good way. That voucher thing was sort of like a way to sort of keep foreign people, if they do visit and they say they're going to go around, Moscow to the Gold Ring, that they're locked into those plans and they can't really go off route. And if they do and they get caught, they're going to be in trouble, so on and so forth. It comes from Soviet paranoia. It has no reason to exist now. None at all.
The details I provided were probably legit on my first trip when I went to, Moscow, St. Pete, and to Crimea as well. I was in Yalta, but after that, the last 2 trips, it's just been, checking the box, as you said.
Yeah. There's no point in that. I wouldn't worry about that. But one thing you should do is always, wherever you go, you should have your passport, the little piece of paper transportation card. I can't remember what it's called. The little white piece of paper you get when you go over the border, and your registration, be it at the hotel or whatever, if they give you one. Sometimes the hotels just sort of like gloss over it, and they keep it themselves. But you should have those 3 things on you at all time. Remember, the little piece of paper is easy to lose or get wet, so maybe you might want to actually bring like some sort of little piece of plastic to keep it in or something. But that is important, because if you are here in Russia legally but you don't have your documents in order, it's a 5,000 ruble fine. So, yeah.
That's a good point. So one last thing. You may have answered this question before, and I'm not that guy that's trying to get to annoy you, but as far as the requirements to get married in Russia are concerned, it's your passport, your official birth certificate with an apostille, and a willing bride, of course. Is there anything else that's required?
Oh gosh, dude, I'd have to look into that. It's been so long, but I think that really might be it. But I'm almost positive you're going to need to have your passport translated. And it has to be every page of the passport. And judging by your accent, you're an American or a Canadian? American. That means that you have to have every word in your passport, including like the quotes by Thomas Jefferson, has to be translated. If you need help with that, I'll send you to a place where they've already done 1 million American passports, and they'll do it for real cheap because the work's already been done. So if you want,
that's also needed to open a bank account. So that's something that
is needed for literally everything, because foreign passports written in a foreign language don't count for anything.
I've bought my ticket to travel through Turkey to Russia in the beginning of October. So I'm trying to get rid of a lifetime worth of junk that I've collected, books, CDs, and then, big stuff like pieces of furniture and whatnot, so that I can live the minimalist life and, move myself to Russia. So
I don't know, dude, do you have a job lined up?
I don't have a job, but I do have savings.
Well, man, you got to ASAP get on some sort of like at least dinky English teaching job so you can get some kind of visa and just be here, like you got to do something, man. So, well, I guess when you get here, you're probably going to be on an American style tourist visa. So you got time, but issue number 1 then is going to be job or beating Miss Right. Again, like I tell everyone, download Tinder, pay the additional fee that allow you to set your city to somewhere. And if you're going to be living in, say, Moscow, set your Tinder city to there, start meeting people so you can get on with your life, because there's no point in wasting time. So
one good tip that I might share with everyone is that during my trips in the past, when staying long term, there are a number of meetup groups. Well, when the site meetup.com used to work, but there are a number of English language groups where Russian, people try to organize other Russians to get together to speak English, and they want people like us to go there to speak because they don't have a lot of native speakers.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, remember, you're talking to a weirdo who lives by himself in the woods. Why would you want to do that? What's the benefit for you?
To meet women. Because ideally, if I'm going to meet a woman, I would like her to speak at least a little bit of English. And most of the people that go to those meetups are women.
Yeah, but they're kind of not the kind of women you want.
Although some of them are the Atlanticist integrationists. This is true because
well,
some of
yeah.
that
So you're,
comes with the language.
because usually if a woman is some sort of hardcore English fanatic that she's going to these clubs, it's because she dreams of riding with her husband who's going to pay for her to live a life of luxury for the rest of her life on a red double-decker bus through the streets of London in some sort of fairy tale.
That was the one foothold that I found. That was the one,
maybe if you're old school and you like to meet people in person, I guess if you can get your instincts there, but or you feel that you have a much better game in real life than you do online, that'd be cool. That's cool. But and I guess it does sort of make you the center of attention. But at the same time, then that means you gotta bring that game, because when you're online, it's a little bit easier to be witty when you're typing the women than it is to stand up there like you're Howard Stern and be like, "Listen, you 12 people, I'm going to entertain all of you for 2 hours." That's a whole nother bag of worms. But dude, if you enjoy it, go nuts. But that's an option. Not so much for me. I find that kind of depressing, because if there's anything I can't tell you is if you meet people who are like hardcore adult English, like learners of English, they're always lame. But anyways, I'm going to let you go there. So take care. Well, I guess I let everyone talk twice. So V, if you want to talk, we'll chit chat a little bit more with you or someone else. You guys can raise your hand if you want. We're open to calls here. Today's overall topic was the raiding of Trump's house. But we're kind of going all over the place here today, which is fine. Like I said at the beginning of this, I can't sleep. I saw this Trump thing, and I'm so, I don't know if it's angry, but just like, anger's not it. Disgust. It's probably, I feel disgusted. But anyways, I'm not disgusted at all to have V back on the program. Hello. Everyone's getting 2 calls today.
Okay, good. I don't know if you saw in the chat, I did post the screenshot.
Hold on. Oh boy. How there we go. Hold on. There's a whole there. I'm gonna try my best to do something right now, and I'm sure it's gonna fail. Hold on. That would be I'm gonna try to show everyone this thing that you sent. Go. Okay, now if we share the screen like so, share screen. Okay, so anyways, it says Ura.ru. The first region of the Russian Federation wants to return mandatory vaccine against COVID. Pskov wants to reintroduce compulsory injections. There were never mass compulsory injections. That didn't happen. I don't know who writes this stuff. It never happened. An announcement made on the same day the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov predicted such measures might be needed. Coincidence or fate? Peskov adopted mandatory vaccine on. I don't know anyone who had mandatory vaccine.
Okay.
I don't know what they're getting this from. This is like when Russians talk about guns. The region dropped its digital cattle tag system. Oh, that's this. No. Presumably canceled coercive needling sometime after. When was this even written? I can't see it.
It says
August 3rd.
Yeah, that's why it was fairly recent. That's why I was confused. But,
I don't know. The federal government said that they're all COVID restrictions. Hold on. Ковидные меры сняты. Okay, here we go.
You did an interview with Justice, right? Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. Hold on. I gotta stay on topic here. So, anyways, look at this. What does this say? In Russia, they've removed all coronavirus restrictions the 1st of July.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in direct contradiction to this. Rospotrebnadzor included canceled all mask regime and the restriction on working in like cafes during nighttime. The decision was kind of signaled and explained with the strong reduction of the quantity of infected people by coronavirus in the last 4 months. So this is, I don't know. So there you go. I don't know what to tell you.
That's okay. It's hard when you don't speak the language, I think, to some because for Spanish speaking things, like obviously I can vet that, but this is Russian, so it was like you're relying on third party knowledge, right? It's hard to vet.
Yeah. So I don't know. But you said something about Justice Walker?
Yeah, just like when we're talking about freedom, that episode kind of going around his farm and his family, and like that's what freedom would mean to me, is like just genuinely being left alone, but like for reals, not like pretend, because when I came to a red state in America, that's what I thought I was signing up for, and we've been here for just almost exactly a year, and it's becoming apparent by the day that like it's not quite exactly the dream I had in mind.
In what way? And in fact, V, we're going to close off the episode with you. So we're going to finish up our big convo with you, and then when I'm going to hit the road here. But anyways, in what way or ways?
Okay. I don't know. Also, it just, okay, for example, homeschooling. This was supposed to be like a homeschool light touch state, but then it turned out there was a whole bunch of other hoops and things I had to jump through that I was not familiar with. Weirdly, even though it's a red state, they are allowing kind of like the speed cameras and traffic cameras to start coming in to intersections. It just seems kind of like everyone. I was speaking to a couple of refugees from New York, and they had the same impression, which is like we all came here being like, okay, red state freedom, and then it just turns out that I think because they didn't experience the tyranny that we have, like me in the UK and other people in blue states, they're kind of just coasting, and they're not really proactively guarding the things that need to be guarded. And then just culturally, like I didn't know how, like after being in Europe, which I wouldn't consider that socially conservative, but I guess in places like in Croatia and Cyprus, the places we were, it felt very odd. We're talking about freedom, but it's like I actually couldn't take my kids to a whole bunch of stores for the entire month of June for fear of what they would be exposed to.
Well, what do you mean?
Makes me sound stuffy, but I mean, like Target had like chest binders like proudly on display, and like all of this like pro Alphabet Brigade stuff that it's like not all of it didn't feel very child appropriate. And I know that makes me sound stuffy and whatever, but listen, like literally 2 years ago, this is me like pro choice and like left leaning, like I'm really not that stuffy, but it's like I do think the innocence of children should be guarded. That doesn't make me, super crazy conservative, but I don't want my kids exposed to certain things. So that
no, and I don't either. That's the thing is like now that essentially I can never go back into America unless something radically changes in like the power structure. On the one hand, it's sad, but like I can't take my kids back to school. The schools are so corrupted by this madness, and here you're not going to see, I guess, things of you're not going to see a lot of stuff of a sexual nature being exposed to people. There's at least officially like stores of an adult nature have to be sort of like blocked from the street and all that, although I guess they do exist in Moscow anyways. But generally, the darker side of Russia it's on the internet. You have to go looking for it. It doesn't go looking for you. So that's one of the nice parts about Russia. But that's pretty crazy, especially like Croatia. But one thing I can tell you is, V, with your family there, stay tuned for the American Villages Project. I know I've been talking about it for months and months. It's taking forever. There's just a lot of bureaucracy with it. In fact, we just had a meeting where I sort of had to change we collectively decided to sort of change a little bit of the order of the way that we're doing things. And it's just a long pain in the butt, but it's going to happen eventually. And eventually we're going to be able to build this community where people are going to feel very comfortable and hopefully be able to offer you, may even be able to offer people pre-built houses that they can sort of basically pay back the government for. That might actually be in the works. We'll see. As of now, I'm not even really sure of what it's going to be like, or there's just going to be raw land, but that's very real. But if you want to come to Russia in the very near future and you want to live like Justice Walker, there is an option. And that is a business I wanted to set up for a long time, but I kind of don't have I have one minor sort of problem with it. I want to, as a Russian citizen, buy and hold land for foreign people that come here so they can take it later. Because you can't buy land here until you become a citizen. You can buy an apartment, but you can't buy land. All right. And so if you trust me enough, I'd be happy to provide my services and be the temporary landlord. We can get the lawyers going and all that. Well, I know a million lawyers. So if you'd like to be the first client in that business, I can offer you that, because that is one tough thing. Because even Justice himself said that, maybe I'm not supposed to be talking about this, but I guess I will, that, his farm was owned by a friend he trusted for many years before he got citizenship. So he actually had to put basically his entire life savings and his entire trust in this guy, who thankfully didn't screw him over.
I mean, that's not that they do that in Thailand and Bali. I mean, it's not completely unheard of. I understand the concept. Will that help with immigration though? Owning something?
What?
Will that help with immigration owning something?
Yes and no. The one thing that it does give you is there's this thing that you'll was really the bane of my immigration process, was called registration. Again, we've talked already today about how in the Soviet Union they wanted to keep people where they were. Well, the registration thing is basically saying in your passport where you live officially. Okay, it's like a permanent address, but it's very difficult to establish because many times the people who own an apartment that you rent won't register you. Because in the olden days, it used to give you a sort of claim on the land. So a lot of the older people are afraid to do it. And it's a pain in the butt, and a lot of the landlords don't pay taxes, so they don't really want the government knowing someone lives there because they don't want to pay taxes, even though the taxes are like 4%. They won't do it. So it's a whole kind of real tough thing where owning land, what it does do is it gives you, well, if there's somewhere to live on that land that's the right type of land, it can give you a place to live and be registered, which for me was a huge problem because I may or may not have used less than legitimate registrations until I finally bought something.
Okay.
And that is very, very critical to immigrating. And it's critical to everything. It's critical to getting a bank account open. It's critical to getting a job. It's critical to every phase of your life in Russia until you get citizenship. And even then, it's important.
And could you just give the idiots like really short 2-minute explanation of the gun rights, because there's so much conflicting information online?
Yeah, I want to make a quick. I'm going to make a video about that in the near future because so many people have asked me. But this is going to be our last answer to your last question there. So there's sort of two key components to this. So number one is only citizens can own guns. That's absolutely it. So until you get citizenship, you can't own a gun. Can you use a gun as a non-citizen? Depends where you are. In Moscow, probably not. In the rest of the country, probably yes, which is weird. Okay? Because the laws are written very vague about the usage of guns, especially at firing ranges, and who can use them. So it doesn't really confirm or deny that only citizens can use firing ranges. So it's kind of weird. All right. So I used a gun here many times before I got citizenship. So the thing is then after you get citizenship, you can jump through a bunch of hoops and prove you're not insane and pay someone on. You also have to take a photograph of owning a gun safe because in Russia, you are responsible for your gun. Like if it got stolen or something, you'd have to report it, and you're responsible for at least providing some sort of minimum level of security. So you have to kind of like buy a safe, install it, and then send a photograph to your sheriff, your local sheriff, and then he gives the green light on it. There's a few other things, but all in all, it doesn't cost much money. It's just kind of a pain. And then you can buy your first shotgun, okay? And you can buy whatever shotgun you want. You can buy a semi-auto 10-shot shotgun. One of the ironies is the most popular gun in Russia is a combat shotgun, the kind that have like a magazine, like because they give a lot of boom for very little money, and they're fun and they look cool. And that's what you can buy first. And then after 5 years, you could expand to rifles. And I believe with the right documentation, you can have 5 shotguns and 5 rifles maximum. So you can't like really build up an armory. Handguns of a what they call a military variety cannot be owned by normal citizens. So you can't buy a handgun. What you can buy is a trauma pistol, which shoots rubber bullets. You can buy that with the shotgun. The thing about the trauma pistol, though, has a certain advantage, is that in a court of law, it does not count ever as lethal intent. Okay? because it's specifically designed to be a non-lethal weapon. If you were to get in an altercation, they could never claim that you were trying to use lethal force. The problem about Russia that is something that really needs to be addressed in the future, and it's one of these elephants in the room, is that the whole thing about when you can use lethal force or any sort of force to protect yourself is completely undescribed, and you don't know. And it really is random, and that's why generally Russians will tell you is the way the laws are written, it's better to just never risk an altercation, but what if you need to? So essentially, you never know. You could, someone could invade your home. You could put a shell in them. Nothing happens. Same thing, you go to jail for the rest of your life. Well, it shouldn't be the rest of your life, 15 years. Generally, they don't give life sentences in Russia. So it's usually like 10 or 15 years, even for heinous things. That's one of the major problems of Russia is the applied use of force by normal citizens. It's completely random what the judge is going to do. There's no standards or practices, and if there are standards, they're all from the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union, what was the standard? If you see something bad, call the police. Well, what's happening if someone's killing you with a knife? Call the police. It's Soviet system. But then also the Soviet system, if someone was killing you with a knife and you did kill them, they'd probably just look the other way because who cares? Because it's Russia. And that's one of those things where it's a weird system. And you can also always rely on the fact that in Russia, kill 2 people, go to jail for 2 years. Steal 3 chickens, go to jail for 3 years. Russia has fair system. So there's always the weird things where, you never know what you're going to get. So unfortunately, V, I don't know, do you have any other questions that sort of sum up guns for you in general?
Yeah, no, you were super helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. They're real cheap, by the way, like $500, and you're throwing some buckshot. But anyways, I'm going to buy a gun in the future when I finally get money. And anyways, guys, I guess I'm going to hit the road here. I do also want to extend my house, even before I buy the gun, when I do the house extension. So I can finally have a nice studio instead of this stupid green thing in the stupid wall and this thing. I want to have a real studio. It's going to be real comfortable. So I'm going to do that. But somewhere in the studio, I'm actually going to get the gun safe installed. So at least I'll have the safe ready. My main problem with the gun is because I travel a lot and I have this weird thing about, being divorced and spending time with the kids. A lot of the time I'm not home. And and eventually, I'll put it this way. Eventually someone will find out that like I'm leaving a gun there. I just worry about it. I don't know. And also, because I work a lot, like I don't think I'm really going to use it very much. So it's something I want to do. I miss using guns, and I know people who do go out and use guns, but at the same time, it's like it's kind of a pain in the butt. And again, it's kind of the same reason I don't have a dog. Is it's like I have to constantly not be home, so you can't have a dog. And I think it's sort of the same thing with a gun. I don't really want to leave a really nice, expensive gun around when I'm gone for weeks at a time. So anyways, that's the problem. But you, V, have a husband there and many, many children, so there's always going to be someone home, so you don't have that problem. Okay, so anyways, guys, I'm going to hit the road. I hope this was interesting. There's a lot of people. Oh, my gosh. There are a lot of people watching right now. So anyways, thank you all for being with me. And give me some questions and comments for the next stream, and I will see you then.